believe in God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. The third day he arose from the dead. He ascended to heaven, and sitteth on the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence he shall come to judge the wicked and dead, and believe in the Holy Spirit, the Church universal, the communion of the saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and life everlasting. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today, Lord. I ask that you continue to be with us, lead and guide us in all that we do. Honor and glorify your name, Lord. Lord, we bless you and just thank you for today and giving us this opportunity to learn thy word. Lord, we thank you for that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. On page 32. You may be seated. Our lesson for today, Simon Peter, from weakness to strength. And this lesson is taken from three books, Mark, 8th chapter, Luke, the 22nd chapter, and John, the 18th chapter. Key verse comes from John 21, verse 17. And it says, Jesus said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to them, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. That's coming from John 21st chapter, 17th verse. Come on in.
Morning.
I want to start. So good. Mark 8th chapter, 27 through 29. Responsive reading. Verse 27. Jesus went on with his disciples to the village of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked his disciples, who do people say that I am? 28.
And they answered him, John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others one of the prophets.
29, he asked them, but who do you say that I am? Peter answered him, you are the Messiah. Luke 22nd chapter, 31st through the 34th verses. 31.
Simon, Simon, listen, Satan had demanded to sift all of you like wheat.
32nd. But I have prayed for you that your own faith may not fail, and you, when once you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. 33rd.
And he says to him, Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death.
34th. Jesus said, I tell you, Peter, the cock will not crow this day until you have denied 3 times that you know me. John, the 18th chapter, 25th through the 27th verses. 25th.
Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They asked him, you are not also one of his disciples, are you?
He denied it and said, I am not.
26. One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, did I not see you in the garden with him? 27.
Again, Peter denied it, and at that moment the cock crowed.
21st through the 21st chapter, 15th through the 17th verses. 15. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my lambs. 16.
A second time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, tend my sheep.
17th and last.
together. He said to him the third time,
Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep.
Amen. Decalogue, summary of the Decalogue. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Lord, have mercy among us, and incline our heart to keep this law.
Hear what Christ our Savior said. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. The lesson today is Simon Peter, from weakness to strength. Very good lesson. We should have a lively discussion about that. Not only about Peter, but about Jesus and about ourselves. So, teachers may now take charge of the class.
And if you came on up here, just to reiterate and stuff, I think I told the pastor that, somebody gonna take my place next Sunday, I'm gonna be here. We'll be in Atlanta for the family reunion. So, somebody volunteer.
I will be here, you know, much my family in Tallahassee.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, and it must be that time of the year. It's family reunion time. It's hot, July.
Yeah.
Great lesson, y'all. You know, a lot of things and stuff. You know, you can say what you will, say what you want, you know, about people. Peter's a lot of things, you know. Hey, Peter, like anybody, you know, Simon Peter, from weakness to strength. Key verse, Jesus said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep, John 21:17. Peter, character of all character. Everybody think Peter genuinely loved Jesus? He did. Now, you say a lot of things about Peter and stuff, but Peter did love Jesus and stuff, you know. Peter did a lot of things, you know. Hey, we know Peter for being loud, boisterous, always jump quick to open his mouth without thinking, you know. Also, you know, hey, he was family man, he was father, you know. He was a fisherman by trade, had a partnership, you know, fishing. Peter did a lot of things. Peter also the same man who bid to Jesus, let me walk on the water with you. He also the one cut off the little high priest servant's ear, you know, the same Peter. The same Peter, you know. So no matter what you say about him and stuff, you know, being like he was and stuff, you know, above all and stuff, and I think this is where the story takes off and stuff about Jesus. You know, Peter's connection to Jesus. Above all the things Peter might have done and could have done and stuff, you know, at the end of it, Peter still was a human being. And Peter had the same weaknesses, the same frailties, and the same fears and everything. It's just like any other human being and stuff, you know. Ask yourself the question before we get into this in-depth lesson and stuff. If it was you at Peter's same time doing what Peter did, how would you have responded? Just think about it for yourself and stuff. You know, life was not easy for Christians at this time and stuff, you know, because one Roman emperor went so far as the lesson pointed out to him stuff, he made the Christian sign, you know, a certificate saying that, hey, look, they wouldn't serve no God, but, you know, the Roman God, you know, and as a Christian, you know, even though we take it for granted today and stuff, that we can serve whatever religion today we want to serve, any way we serve, you know. It's kind of strange sometimes, though. You living in a country that was based on people have the right to religious service, you know, when they all left England to come here. And it's a shame that, you know, religion is still something that whatever people practice and stuff, everybody don't agree with it, no matter what your religion is. You know, so, you know, sometimes watch that for, but sounding people. Humble man, bold man, you know, sold out for Jesus and stuff, you know, but at that moment of truth, you know, most people think about Peter, you think about all those accolades he had and stuff. What's the one thing people remember Peter for doing? Denying Jesus. Denying Jesus. Look here, you can do 99 good things, but do one thing to make that 100th time. And boy, look here, only thing people gonna remember is that 100th time. You know, that Eddie stood up in the paint for 99 times, but on the 100th time, guess what? I ain't gonna do that, you know. And so, you know, it's good sometimes, you know, we serve a God. And thank goodness that we do serve a God that's willing to forgive us, you know, and don't treat us like we sometimes treat our fellow Christians who fall short and stumble. And this was a major stumble, you know, for Peter in this lesson and stuff, you know, because it's one thing. Old folks had a saying when I was growing up, the same thing, Pastor, they say, don't write a check with your mouth if your body can't cash. You understand? And Peter with boldness, you know, you find that Peter answered with boldness and stuff, you know, he got have a great start, you know. Jesus went on with his disciples who lived in the village of, you know, Caesarea Philippi. And on the way, he asked his disciples, who do people say that I am? You know, we done heard this lesson many times. The first time people remember themselves, oh, well, they say it was John the Baptist, some say he was Elijah, some say he was da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, and one of the most important questions Jesus this time asked his disciples, who do ye say I am? You know, Jesus localized that thing and stuff, you know, and he said, because they've always, even today sometimes and stuff, you know, even with us, all these, you know, 2,000 plus years later, stuff, it's still a debate about, that's what I'm talking about, since he's a little student of Christianity, you know, was Jesus really divine? Was Jesus the Son of God? You know, was Jesus human and divine? The question still raised, you know. Jesus been gone for all these years, and people still out there can't say with certainty, was Jesus this? And see, sometimes we like to put everything in a nice little box and stuff, you know. So when Jesus asked his disciples this question, simply predicated on the fact he knew they really, you know. See, it's one thing to admire somebody, you know, and to think great things about a person and stuff, but, you know, that one fine point. Cheryl say she a Christian, you know. Cheryl, boy, you a Christian. You understand? Cheryl can say 100 times, yes, I'm a Christian. But if you got any inclination that you incline not to believe Cheryl and stuff, you know, no matter how many times Cheryl tell you, that's a bit of doubt. My grandma had a saying, y'all, that say, you can tell a lie 1,000 times, but if that lie got this much truth in it, it ain't going nowhere. A lie in and of itself will never stand. But if that lie got a teeny bit of truth in it, that make people want to speculate, boy, look here, you can live to be 100 years old and stuff. Everybody, I remember what, you know. But, you know, moving on, Jesus asked them, say, do you know, who do you say I am? Peter. Big question, y'all. Big question. Always quick to respond. Peter been aggravated with me. You know, it's been hard for me to be in the same room with Peter, you know, because Peter's opinionated, you know, and he quick to react. Peter like, 12 people in the room. Hey, who do you say I am? Oh, what? Hey, old Peter. Quick to respond. But, you know, the word let us know and stuff that, you know, Jesus went on such to Peter. Peter jumped out like I was saying, said, you know, God of Christ, Son of the living God, you know. And then you said, then you read Matthew and stuff, you know, out of all these other kind of Matthew say, you know, he also went on to say, you know, Son of the living God in Matthew 16, he said, flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but it was a divine revelation that you received from heaven, you know. So even though Peter was quick to respond and stuff, you know, we give him kudos the fact that God kind of shed a little light on him. You know, he was responding with that mouth quickly and stuff. You know, God had put this inside of Peter, you know, to say. So, and for Peter to differentiate between who Jesus was. See, at no time, except for Jesus himself, nobody really knew who Jesus was, you know. And so Jesus asked this question because he know that people, and it's amazing how when you're talking with somebody who knows what you're going to say before you say it out there is what you're thinking. God, boy. Right. It's something else to be on, you know, with that kind of power. Yeah. That no matter what you're thinking of, you know, I don't think the preacher like me. You thinking it to yourself. Okay, he don't never talk to me. Then all of a sudden, the church say, look, I don't care what about you or with other. God said, I got to love everybody. And then you sit there and look at me. How do you know what I was thinking? You know? And this is Jesus. Jesus already knew what was in the mind. And think about, you find out the story about Peter. Jesus also knew beforehand what Peter was going to do. You know? And it takes a compassionate person or man to sit down and know that, sure, I know you're going to betray me, but I still got to love you in spite of it, you know? I know you're going to do something, you know, that's going to eventually lead, you know, to my death, but guess what? I'm still going to love you, you know? And this is where it comes down to Peter. Throughout it all and stuff, no matter what Peter did, how he did and stuff, at the end of the day, Peter was still a human being. And we got things as human beings and stuff that sometimes, hey, for better or worse, sometimes, you know, we don't always do what we say we're going to do and how we say we're going to do it. And then answered him, John the Baptist, Elijah, others still one of the prophets. He asked, well, who do you say I am? You are the Messiah, you know, Peter said, you know. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has desires to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. Funny thing about the Bible and stuff, when you see repetitive repeating of something, Jesus called Simon Peter's name. Just said Simon, Simon, devil wants you. But he emphasized Simon, Simon, called him 2 times. How many names did Peter have? Just pure art of Satan. Had a whole lot. How many names did he have? 3. Yay, Cheryl. Cheryl getting the star.
Just guess. Did you know I was guessing?
That's all right, Cheryl. Hey, believe it or not, God inspired you to say, Peter had 3 names. He called him Simon, you know, before he was, you know, Samuel, you know, the rock, you know, and also, you know, he was called, you know, Peter by Jesus, you know. All these things and stuff, you know, and for Christian stuff, it's always the point, what's in the name? You know, they didn't just name people like we got, hey, Eddie, George, Clarence, you know, all of, hey, the name used to mean something. When they named the children, they had a great significance that went along with that name. You know, it wasn't just something you pick out of the hat to say, well, I'm going to call you Bartholomew, I'm going to call you, you know, names have significance. So when Jesus responded to Peter, you know, he basically gave Peter, you know, kudos, you know, hey, look, you know, flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you and stuff, you know, something you got from heaven. You know, my Father in heaven revealed this to you and stuff. But he, with with that innate, you know, precognitive, you know, thought about what Peter's gonna do. Jesus also looking at the same Peter with a whole different set of eyes. Even though he hollering about the devil wanting him, you know, how would you feel, Eddie, if I said they call your name and then all of a sudden I tell you the devil want to sift you like wheat? Everybody remember that process about how they got separate the you know, the good stuff from the bad stuff and the husk and the shell when they trying to get, you know, get to the grain. To sift anything, you have to shake the bottom to shake, you know, what's supposed to fall off to hit the ground, and the rest of it, the chaff and all, you know, you shake it, and they would throw it up in the air so the wind would take all the useless stuff away, and what fell to the ground was what you could use, you know. And not only did Satan want to get it, because look at Peter. Of all of Jesus' disciples, the most vocal, proven leader, Peter, all this. Huh? Now, if the devil could get Peter and convince Peter otherwise and stuff, you know, what would have done to Jesus' plan? The devil was shrewd. Ain't nobody never said the devil was stupid. You know? But Jesus already told Peter beforehand, even before all of the stuff came about, don't worry about it, Peter. I done already prayed for you. You know, basically, remember what happened, the story of Job, just to highlight the kind of situation we're talking about here. Remember what happened with the devil? You know, and the conversation came about Job. Remember what the devil told God? He said, you know, how can I touch your servant Job? You know, you got your hand on him. You know? So I can't touch it. Well, Peter, Jesus already prayed for him. You know? And one thing the disciples should have learned a long time ago, when Jesus prayed for him and stuff, you know, he said, and also the Bible said, he didn't want to lose not one that God gave him, you know? Which means the disciples were sealed, you know, by the word of, you know, the Son of God. But Peter had a problem. Peter had a problem, you know, sometime. And he had a natural problem as a human being and stuff. If you walk with somebody for 3 years and you watch this person performing all kinds of miracles, it's the same person, all pulling off unbeknown escapes when people trying to trick him and trying to trap him, you know, and he ended up somewhere 30 miles, 100 miles away doing something else, and they don't know how he disappeared on them and stuff, you know. Peter, everybody agreed. Was Peter scared?
Yeah.
Even though he was bold, was Peter scared?
Yes.
You know. Now let's don't put. You know, you can have a zeal for God, but now we're still talking about human beings. And you know, as human beings and stuff, you know, we'll talk, we'll do this and I'll do that, but guess what? On the moment of, you know, Peter, after Jesus told him, said, I prayed for you, you know, and he said, I'm ready to die with you. Verse 33 put Peter out there. Was Peter bragging?
Was it what?
Was he bragging? Was he cocky?
Yes.
You know, was he misguided, overconfident? Peter, at this point, was all those things. Peter had walked so close with Jesus and did so many things, watching Jesus do his stuff. Guess what? Remember what Jesus promised to the disciples? These things I do, you shall do and do more, even greater than what I do. Huh? So Peter took it figuratively, you know. Peter felt like that he could, hey, Lord, I go with you, you know. If they put you in prison, I'm ready to go with you. I'm ready to die with you, you know. If you go to, if they kill you, I'm ready to die too. But then, on the moment of, how many times did Peter deny Jesus?
3 times.
Y'all make a note in your book so you don't sit there and look so long. I didn't have 2 o'clock in the morning. You have to finally figure it out. They only say 2 times about the denial. They never told you about the first time when the little young girl approached Peter. You know, that was in 18, verse 17. See, this thing picked up at John 18:25. So in verse 17 was when he met the woman. The first denial. The woman said, "Aren't you one of them?" Oh no. See? So you just get the two times that Peter denied himself. But the significance of the fact, Jesus had told Jesus he would do all these things, he would follow him, he would do that. And then when the moment came for Peter to stand up in the pain, Peter was overcome by fear. First, there's a young girl that confronted him. He's woman himself. And the funny thing about Peter followed Jesus. But how did Peter follow? Was he close to the action? Sure was, Eddie. From here to that door, Peter was following from a distance. He peeping, he looking, see what's happening, but he was far enough back in the way so he wouldn't get caught up. But then, by circumstances, God, divine wisdom, stuff himself to put Peter there. The girl confronted him. He was close enough to see and hear where Jesus was. Also, when the man asked him, said, he was standing warm with himself. He was in the courtyard of the high priest. You understand? So he wasn't too far away from what actually was going on. In the courtyard of the high priest, and he got asked, and they asked him, "You are also one of his disciples, aren't you?" That's the second time Peter denied. He said, "I am not." One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter cut off. Malchus was the man that ear Peter cut off, and the man, who was there saw him say, "Hold up. I saw you, the guy. And I know you was with him." So Peter stuck nine stuff here with fear. Who did Peter have to start defending? Got to save Peter. Got to save Peter. Now you could talk all about this, about I'm a stand up in the pain. I'd have went with Jesus. Peter was a man, and then it was really close when the man told him, say, "Yeah, I know you was there when you cut off the man's ear and stuff, in the garden." All of these lessons and stuff, Mark 8:27-29 and stuff. This was the latter part of Jesus' ministry. Jesus knew his ministry was coming to an end, okay? When he was sitting there asking all this question, who do people say I am? Who do you say I am? John 18:25-26 and stuff. This was when, Peter knew, Jesus was letting Peter know that, hey, you was going to deny me 3 times before the cock crow. See, all these things have a specific point within Jesus' ministry and stuff. In John 21:15-17 and stuff, this was during the time when Peter, after the denials, where God had set the time aside to restore Peter, back to his rightful place after denial and stuff. But one thing you got to understand and stuff is, Jesus knew what Peter was going to do. Peter didn't do nothing that already preordained. Hey, whether Peter did anything different, he was going to come out the same way anyway, because that was basically Peter's job. What was the difference between Peter and Judas? In the sense, how do you think Peter failed after he betrayed Jesus?
Judas went out and killed himself.
See, Jesus, Peter, weeping, moaning, feeling sorrowful. His sorrowfulness and his feeling, like he done wronged Jesus and stuff after everything he had said and stuff. What convicts you when you know you done did it wrong? Conscience. Judas despair when he, had betrayed Jesus, for 30 pieces of silver and stuff, it led Judas to just sin worse and commit suicide. Peter grieved so much and was so outdone by what he had done to Jesus that, it caused him to want to everything. Why the 3 questions from Jesus? Why the 3 questions?
He died 3 times. He asked him 3 times.
Restore him.
See the symbolism? 3 times you deny me, so 3 times, you know. and to get asked, you know, and also, you know, don't miss things in the lesson or something. This is where I keep, y'all hear me say a lot of times, that Jesus and God both had that sense of humor. What was the first time Jesus met his disciples? What was they doing when he called them? What did he try to do? Fishing. The fish all night long. What they call it?
Nothing.
What did Jesus tell them to do? Throw it to the other side. Go to the right side. What did Jesus tell them this? What were they doing this time? Because see, somewhere along the line, Peter went back to work. He told him, said, I'm going fishing. Peter said, I'm going back fishing. Peter had to find some kind of way to get some relief. So Peter went fishing and took some of the disciples with him and stuff. Jesus came back and stuff, and guess what? So everything repeated itself, you know. So when they had died, because Jesus told them once again, hey, put your net on, throw your net on the other side. You know? Say, you ever seen, everybody believe in deja vu? Oh, Lord, I done seen this or did this before and stuff, you know. So Peter did the same thing. When they had finished breakfast, you know, Jesus once again done hey, he cooking them breakfast, you know. When they had died, Jesus said to Simon, son of John, you know, do you love me more than these? Everybody circle that phrase in your book. More than these. Who you talking about?
Some scholars say he's talking about, you know, the disciples. Some say he's talking about the fish. Some say he's talking about the boat and the nets.
Yeah. All these things. But you don't really, hey, everybody speculate, but guess what? You know, some say you have to take on faith. Understand? And so he asked Peter to say, do you love them more, these more, you know, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my lambs. The second time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, tend my sheep. Lamb the first time, sheep the second time. Third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter felt hurt because he had said to him the third time. Y'all ever thought Peter might have felt some of the same hurt that Jesus felt? Because see, what this lesson don't tell you, but what Matthew was pointing out and stuff was that when Peter denied Jesus the third time, in Matthew's account of this, Matthew said, Jesus turned and looked Peter in the eye. You say, hold up, I thought you weren't going, you ready to die, fuck, ready to go to prison with me, but I'm looking at you and I'm hearing, I'm seeing you. You know, Peter, Jesus loved and Jesus, he was devastated. When that rooster crowed, it was like everything that got blocked out of Peter's mind. But when the rooster crowed, it seemed like everything unlocked. And here was Peter saying, oh my God. He done told me I was going to deny it. You know, he done told me this, you know, but Peter, at least Peter didn't get indignant. Like I said, Peter weeping in his sovereignness, it turned him to want to gravitate back to God. It didn't make him so bitter that he gave up, you know. And see, that's the difference between Peter and Judas. Judas knew he had did wrong when he betrayed Jesus and stuff, but he really had no remorse, you know. His remorse turned him to sin even worse. But here was Peter with that genuine love. Everything came back. It's like Peter kind of remembered who he was and stuff. And the third time, you know, when Jesus said, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know everything. Up front. Who getting it ready? Lord, you know everything. It ain't about me. You know. You know how I feel about you. You knew that from Jump Street. You also knew I was going to deny you. You know? And the same thing, if Judas had the same mind that Peter had, he might have asked too, Lord, why did you give me this job to be the one to betray you? You know? And the thing you have to understand too and stuff was that all of this stuff took place and stuff, especially this was when Jesus prayed the third time and stuff. This is when Jesus, the last night, coming up to the last night in the world when all this was going on. Peter was doing all this because after that and stuff. And the thing to get it was they said Peter was grieved because he said to him third time, love thy me. And he said to him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Almost within hours after this conversation that took place, you know, this is when Jesus, you know, was led away to go through all that, being whooped and carried to the cross. All this followed almost immediately. So it's like Peter had no time to sit there and say, oh, I made a mistake, because once the chain of events started, you know, wasn't no like say it stopped and a little while later, right after, soon after, hours after all this denial went on and stuff with Peter and stuff, you know. Jesus was going through all the stuff that he was sent in the world to do and stuff, you know. Sometimes, as human beings and stuff, you know, we're more critical of each other than Jesus had ever been of us, you know. Did Peter let his attitude, his behavior, you know, get the best of him, you know? Peter had a boldness. Peter had a something. Hey, to quote a pastor, attitude determines your aptitude for success. Peter's attitude, the way he carried himself, the way he positioned himself, you know, it was just the reverse of the way Peter acted, you know, on the moment of. See, Peter exhibited strong leadership, a boldness, a sincerity, a humbleness. But after all this happened, when Jesus was trying to get Peter to come back, Peter exhibited something that had all been part of him, but he had forgot about it. Humility. Peter was genuinely sorry, you know, and say, Peter was hurt. When Jesus asked him the third time, Jesus was hurt. When he looked you in the eyes after you denied him that third time, and that rooster crowed, you know? You know? So, you know, but Jesus didn't hold that against Peter, you know? You know what the Bible tells us, a favorite expression? God ain't gonna put no what? And all that you do, he always leaves a way out for you to escape, for you to come back. You know, in order to get God's grace and salvation and mercy for something, we all have done things. Let's be honest, we all have done things that we wish had never happened. You can't take them back, but you can say, Lord, forgive me. Don't hold that against me. You know, I was wrong when I did that, but, you know, I don't know about y'all, I asked the Lord to do a whole lot of stuff in the sea of forgiveness as far as east is from the west. You know, Lord, don't hold that against me, you know. You know, that was one of the things that I shouldn't have done, but I did do, you know. You got to seek forgiveness. In order to obtain forgiveness, first of all, first thing you got to do, Joe, if you want to be forgiven for doing something, repent. You got to repent. I did it. I'm sorry I did it. Please forgive me. Because if you ain't willing to repent, to say you did something wrong, you know, then how do you think God's going to forgive you? Huh? See, God ain't giving you the attitude of forgiveness. Lord, forgive me, you know. But you got to have the same attitude when it comes to dealing with other people, you know. You can't turn your nose up and think you're better than somebody else and stuff, you know, just because your life circumstances may be a little bit different or a little bit better than what they're going through, you know. We sat down there, and especially preachers, you know, look at sometime, you know, you ask yourself about, and you do these for the least of them, you know, clothe the naked, feed the hungry, you know. See, when you do it, and it's a natural thing to you, Ain't no boast. And see, we all say a lot of times we take stuff for granted. I can praise you all day long, you know, in public, but if that ain't genuine, you understand? Because if I'm gonna do a real thing for you, it probably gonna be ain't nobody gonna know about it but me and you. And unless you decide to tell somebody, you know? See, you ain't supposed to be doing stuff with people and then, hey, look what I did for Cheryl. Look what I did for Inez. If that's the way you did, you shouldn't have done it. Because it's not for real, it's not genuine and stuff, you know. And sometimes when we do things knowingly, you know, we subject to fall. We subject to something. Did Peter stumble? Was it a major stumble? But who had him in his hand all the time? Look, Peter, devil wants you. I done already prayed for you. I done already told him he can't have you. He can't have you. The same way, when the devil told God, "Let you got your hand on Job," guess what? He said, "You do everything you want to Job, and he ain't gonna change." But guess what? God put one requirement: you can't kill him. You can't kill him. You understand? Job had souls on me, scraping all kinds of stuff. Boy, soul, wife told me he was crazy, y'all cuss you, the Lord and die. But guess what? Lost all his children, all his cattle, house, everything. But Job still trusted God. You know, and that's the kind, you can't put, and I want y'all to listen to me, and sometimes that's hard to do. You can't put nothing and nobody and nothing ahead of God. See, and that's the realization that Peter had to come back, and that's the realization every Christian has to put. God always has to be first. You can't say, in how, told Reverend Chambers one time, every pastor, CEO, John Evans, Mr. John Evans, he said, how to love God, family, others. But you can't put family second, you know, to God. Yeah, you gotta love God. Guess what? God also required that you gotta love your family what? Like you love him. That should be the closest kind of love that you have to God that you can get other than loving God. It's the way you treat and love your family. You know? And if you put family in second or third position, well, I love God, and I love God and I love my money. And family come along after that. you ain't gonna have that. You ain't gonna keep it low and stuff. We must be serious, you know, when it comes to loving God, you know, because Jesus prophesied against Peter, and you don't listen when people sometimes, old folks might have told you things when you was growing up and stuff that you never paid attention to, and then they come back and hit you. I was 10 years old, and my grandma told me, say, "Hey, sometime in order to get your attention, sometime God will take it all from you." The grandma said, "Take it all?" And then, 10 years old, 15 years later, hey, I knew what my grandma was talking about. Lost it all. Lost house, family, marriage, children, everything. Worse than Tina Turner, had 3 pennies in my pocket. And people was trying to take my Volkswagen for $300. That's all I owed on it. Hey, and I said, "Grandmama, you did tell me sometimes you lose it all." But we have to remember that the way you treat people, you know, sad to say it, sometimes the way you treat others, sometimes the way God gonna receive you and treat you. You know, because if you can't share what you have with others, you can't give to others and stuff, you know, then why? Why do you think God gonna give you the best you have to give and you ain't giving nothing? Or you giving the least, or you giving a minuscule portion, you know? Somebody tell me what the tithe is. What's the tithe? According to the Bible. A tithe. A tenth. Now, what did God have said? In the same time the Bible says, I want 50% of everything you have, what you earn while you live. You know? And we struggle sometimes just with 10%. You know? And then you forget, it ain't 10% of the net. It's 10% of the gross. Which means God should get his money before the government get their taxes. But God money supposed to come out before the taxes come out. You know? And sometimes, you know, when you take the Bible literally, you take the Bible the way it is, sometimes you gotta understand, you know. You got to give God the best that you have and stuff. If you give God the best that you have and him and stuff, God go in turn give you, you know. But don't take it for granted. Like Peter had to. Fear. Fear is one of the biggest misnomers that human beings sometimes have to deal with. The fear of losing something out there. It's the fear of me waking up in the morning and my little bit of money in the bank is gone. Make me like the old crazy people in 1929 when the millionaires used to be millionaires, when the bed millionaires are jumping out of the skyscrapers in New York because they woke up and they were broke. You know, if you're gonna live for Christ, live for Christ. But if you're gonna do it, you got to do it with your whole heart. And don't be like Peter. You know, in the sense, it's one thing to get distracted, but don't lose hope, because if God got you, God got you. And you got to trust and you got to believe that, hey, because God say he got me, I'm covered. Are we covered by God?
Yes.
Through who?
Jesus.
Hey, say the blood. And if there can't be no testament, according to the word, without the shedding of blood, Jesus already shed the blood. Do we have to shed more blood for us to have a testament? Ideas, you true to yourself. To that own self, be true and stuff, you know. And if you do it and stuff, really close and stuff, you know. Don't be like Peter in the sense that you get so self-righteous, so stuck up on yourself and stuff, you know, that you think you can do anything without God. You know, because one thing about God never fails.
Yeah.
Human beings fail every day. But if you leave that way out, and God will do the same thing for us that he did for Peter. Not only did he bring Peter all the way back, he gave Peter his old job back, Eddie. He gave his old job back and said, when I bring you back, you know what the verse he say? What he told him to do about his fellow man? He said, faith may not, you know, fail, and you, when once you have turned back, strengthen your brother. The same way when people stumble and fall and stuff, you know, you can encourage them to come back to God and stuff. That's the same thing God directed people. Say, don't forget about your brothers. When they stumble and fall, you know, they fall like the ark of safety, because had not Jesus been there, where would Peter end up? Oh, the devil was. The devil's right there with his hand. His hand waving. You know? So the devil desires you know, to sift you as wheat. So guess what? The devil desires all of us when he gets you to turn away from God and stuff, you know. Don't turn. Continue to serve God and continue to trust and believe that God is the way out of no way. That's all I got from him.
All right. Okay, now we got water bottle glasses.
2026, classes 1 and 2. Total present, 9 in classroom 1, 2 in classroom 2. Total contribution, $75 in classroom 1, $3 in classroom 2. Reverend Marvin C. Zanders, presiding prelate. Reverend Tansy Moss II, presiding elder. Reverend Christopher T. Jordan, pastor. Brother Clarence Winnett, superintendent. Brother Eddie Fields, assistant superintendent. Bible verse. Jesus said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. John, 21st chapter, 17th verse.
Thank you. Anyone have anything you want to add? Pastor? Anyone? Hey, Pastor.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you all for coming. We ask that you keep Martinez family in prayer as we had that memorial service on yesterday and all others. Very interesting lesson because it ties in a couple events. You know, it ties in, you know, the conversation that Jesus had with his disciples about who do people say I am and who do you say I am. So I'm going to try to touch on all of it. And thinking about that question that Jesus asked, when we look at the region that he was in, that question is not just a simple question. That question is a life-altering question that he asks, because he's in a place, Caesarea Philippi, where it's a Roman place, where it's named after Caesar, where if you call anybody else king, you can lose your life. But also, if you call anybody else king, you're saying that you have an allegiance to them, right? Which remember that for a second, because when Peter says that you are the Messiah, Peter is claiming his allegiance to the Lord. But you see what happens later on. So keep that in mind. And even watch this, the names that the disciples say has meaning. Because when they say John the Baptist, Herod had already thought Jesus was John reincarnated itself. And you know, John, when he came, he broke down political walls. He spoke truth to power. Elijah, when they mentioned him, people thought that, you know, Elijah was a great prophet, and some people thought that God sent Elijah to deliver them. And so even with the other prophets, so it wasn't just no normal people that they mentioned, that they compared Jesus to. They compared him to great people. But what we have to realize for us today in that when we don't understand something, we try to compare it to something that we understand. And because we don't really truthfully grasp who Jesus really is in our lives, we try to put him in a box. And what I want us to realize today and moving forward, when it comes to Jesus, there is no box. All right? Some things we're just not going to be able to understand, but we lose sleep because we try to figure out what God has already worked out in our lives. I said at Bible study on Wednesday, since that name is led, but you know, some people ask why. You know, and I made a comment, brother Eddie, that I had some ladies that always confided in me about stuff, and they don't talk to me no more. I guess so. But they asked the question, why? Why did he do this? And I said, sometimes it's not up to you to understand the why. And I told him, because if you ask the guy why, and he said, because I don't like you because you ugly, fat, and stink, what are you going to do about it? What can you do?
Walk away.
You just walk away.
Now your feelings hurt, and you mad because now you saying what he said ain't true. But you know the why. So sometimes we got to realize that when it comes to Jesus, just like the disciples, you can be walking with him and still don't really know him, right? And then Peter, when he watch this. Jesus did two things there. First, he asked the people, who do people say I am? Because public opinion during that time mattered. Public opinion was big there. Your name, your location, Jesus of Nazareth. You know, John the Baptist, or you know, Simon Peter. The names matter because they normally put your name with your location, right? Because remember, it was the Jesus of Nazareth, but it was also Jesus of, and I can't remember where from, when they asked Pilate, when Pilate asked, who should I release? And they said, Jesus Barabbas, not Jesus of Nazareth. But names matter. So at the time when Jesus asked this question, Jesus had already healed people. He had already raised people from the dead. He had already ministered to people. He had already he had already did so much stuff. He had already condemned people. He had already taught in parable. So he asked the question, who do people say I am? And they gave answers, but then he asked a more important question. Who do you say I am? So let me put that in our perspective. Who do other people say that Jesus is? Some say he's a doctor in the sick room. Some say he's a lawyer in the courtroom. Somebody say he's a bridge over troubled water, right? Some say he's a friend to the friendless. Okay, that's fine, but who do you say that he is? Now, sometimes you got to make it personal to you, right? Because if you've never been sick, how do you know him as a doctor in the sick room? If you've never been in a real courtroom, how do you know him as a lawyer in a courtroom? So who do you say he is? Because we know who Mama and them say he is, but who he is to you, right? You remember when Moses asked God, who should I say sent me? And God said, I am that I am. Because he is who he is to you. But who he is to me, maybe not be who he is to you. Right? So I am that I am. But when we look at that, so now Jesus has asked that question. Right? And Peter has had his alliance with God, with Jesus now, because you are the Messiah. Even though Jesus tells him that only God can reveal that to you. And you got to be careful when somebody in power gives you credit, not to allow that power or the credit they gave to go to your head. Right? I'm going to try to tie this in and make sense of it. And the Bible doesn't say this, but just in my own, going through this brother moment. Now, because Jesus told Peter, on this rock, I build my church, right? And the gates of Hades, or the gates of hell would not prevail, right? Some people will say, well, he was telling Peter he's building the church on him, right? Because you can, you got to be careful when people talk to you, and and that power goes in your head. So now, if you take that, now Jesus and Peter is having this conversation, and Jesus tells Peter, now Peter, I just want you to know that the devil, Satan, has already asked to sift you. And I wanted to look at that because when we look at that you is actually in the Greek plural. So he's not just saying, Peter, Satan has just picked you out. He's asked to sift all of you disciples. And watch this, because somebody may ask, when did the devil, when did Satan have that conversation? Did he have a conversation with God? Did he have a conversation with Jesus? When did he have a conversation? You know, did he show up at another meeting? Right? We don't know, right? But when we take what happened with Job, there's similarities. But when Brother Fennell was talking, I went back and read both of them. There's one difference, right? When Job, when the devil or Satan was at the meeting, and God stopped the meeting for a second and asked Job, Satan, so Brother Satan, what have you been up to? I've been walking to and fro, seeing who I can devour. The statement after that was God saying, have you considered my servant Job? Right? Then Satan said, no, because you got your hedge of protection around Job, and I can't touch him. And God said, well, you can take anything from him. Just don't touch his body or his mind, right? So he went, and that's when Job got the message that not only did all his cattle was killed, but all of his children were killed. And Job still didn't break. Satan went back and said, as long as you know you got his body and all of that, I can't do nothing with him. He's not gonna break. That's when God said you can touch anything but his mind. He was with swords and all of that. But watch this. The difference is God told Satan to try my servant Job. In this instance, you notice what Jesus said. Satan has asked to sift all of you. Right? So Satan at this time is saying that to God and to Jesus that your disciples ain't as faithful as they say they are. And I'm going to show you they're not as faithful as they say they are. Allow me to sift them. Allow me to shake them so violently that it exposes who they really are. And Jesus told Peter at that time, but I have prayed for you. He didn't ever say you wouldn't fail, right? He didn't ever say you weren't going to stumble. So I want us to realize that no matter how we think we are our walk in Christ, we're going to stumble because we're going to get sifted. We're going to get shaken violently. And there are some things, no matter how strong you are, it's going to shake your very foundation. Right? So it shook Peter to the point it exposed his fear. Right? Because one thing, if you think about this, Peter was bold. Cut off the man's ear. Peter was bold. But the one problem Peter had was fear. And I say that because I want to think about another situation. When they were on that boat, and Peter saw Jesus out there, right? What did Peter say? Lord, if that be you, give me permission to come to you, right? Because the fear on the boat was Peter saying, I'm sinking him. I got more strength if I come to you, right? I'm bold enough to ask. But what happened when Peter got closer to the Lord? He took his eyes off because of the wind and all that stuff. That fear came in again, right? So the devil Satan already knew the fear in Peter, right? But Peter didn't understand the fear in himself. He didn't identify his flaws, right? Sometimes we got to identify our flaws in order to work on our flaws, right? So Satan is fit to sift Peter. Peter is speaking on his own authority and his own power. Lord, wherever you go, I go. They got to go through me before they get to you. If they kill you, they got to kill me first, right? Because I'm speaking on my own power. And Jesus is saying, Peter, I already know you. I understand your heart don't pump no Kool-Aid, right? But you got some Kool-Aid packets within you, right? So before the rooster even crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. There's no doubt in my mind that when Peter spoke it, he believed it. But he was speaking on his own authority and his own power, right? And one thing that I think we kind of mentioned, I thought Bro Fennell was going to say it. When Peter denied Jesus the 3 times, it was denied in front of a charcoal lit fire, right? And he did it 3 times. So now that after Peter has said, you know what, Jesus is gone, I'm going fishing, I'm going back to what I know, he already showed us that Peter did still understand what Jesus was telling him, because instead of making disciples, Peter went back to what he was used to. And we got to make sure in our times of trouble, that we don't go backwards to what we used to do, but proceed with what Jesus wants us to do. So Jesus saw him and all of that, and Peter done jumped out the boat again and all of that, and swam and all of that, and now Jesus is on the shore, because the other disciples, remember, was going back to get the fish, right? Peter crazy butt and jumped out the boat to swim the shore, and guess what Jesus has done? Jesus has made another charcoal fire. Cooking. So now he has set the scene. The same scene that you denied me is the same scene I'm going to restore you. Sometimes we got to go back to the same place that hurt us in order for the Lord to restore us. We got to go back to the same place that we denied him in order for God to restore us again, right? He asked Peter 3 times. Each time represented the time that you denied me. But watch what Peter did on that 3rd time. He said, Lord, you know all. Or you know all things. You know that I love you, right? The first time when Peter had a conversation with God, Jesus, and what did Peter say? Lord, you already know I'm going to go wherever you go, right? Peter has humbled himself, right? And said, I can't trust my own opinion no more. So Lord, you know. Because you've already showed me that I can't trust my own opinion. So you know. That is. So sometimes it takes the Lord asking us in order for us to humble ourselves, right? So it was that 3rd time that Peter humbled himself, but I want to go back even one more time. Okay. Go back one more time. Even before we got to that point, Jesus knew Peter was going to deny him, prayed for him, and already restored him before we even got to the point where he asked, do you love me? And watch it. Somebody say, well, Ray, online, what do you mean he restored him? Peter, when you turn back, when you turn back and start back moving forward, remember to strengthen your brothers, right? I already know what you're going to do. I know how you're going to do it. I know when you're going to do it. I know where you're going to do it. And I know where I'm going to restore you at. So when I do it, I need you to turn back and get your brothers, right? Because Peter, I want you to understand how strong you are with the rest of the disciples. Because when you said you was fit to go fishing, what did the other disciples say? I'm going with you, right? So now I need you to turn back and strengthen your brothers. 2 other things, Brother Ned, if I can. One is this right here. When the Lord calls us to do something, there are always going to be people that are watching us, right? And I said 2 more things, but I just thought, something else just jumped in my mind. Because remember when Peter was there and that girl said, aren't you one of the ones? Watch this. Because it was her cousin that Peter cut the ear off of, right? Now watch this. The soldiers was going to get Jesus, right? This girl wasn't no soldier, right? She was just in the crowd. So you're going to have people that are in the crowd watching what you do, right? Watch this. They watch what Jesus was doing, right? They saw what Peter did. There are going to be people in the church not watching what the pastor do. They're watching at how you react to what the pastor does, right? They're not watching what's going on. They're watching you, right? Peter didn't have no intent to think nobody was watching him and what they did because of the sin, all right? So we got to realize like that, but also the Lord has placed you in a position of authority. Whether you believe it or not. If you can convince somebody to go fishing with you, you're in a position of authority. Right? If you can convince somebody to get on a car and ride somewhere with you, you are in a position of authority. Right? So the Lord is saying, make sure you go back and get your brothers. And the last thing, because this popped in my mind, Brother Ned, and I know it probably popped in somebody else's mind, and Brother Fernell mentioned it. You had two instances here. Two people. You got Judas that betrayed Jesus. You got Peter that denied Jesus. And you know what? I'm not going to talk about Thomas itself because that doubted him. But because that happened after. Thomas doubting happened after death, right? Peter and Judas happened before the death. And some has always asked why Judas wasn't forgiven and why Peter was. Right? Why would Judas hang himself or kill himself and Peter did not? And there's been all type of debate and all of that, but what I want to point out is a couple of things. When Judas did what he did, Judas went to the people and already, basically, Judas already knew what he wanted to do, and he did. When Peter denied it, Peter didn't have no intention of denying. Peter, from every account, said, I ain't going to deny it. But his fear made him deny it, right? Judas' greed made him betray Jesus. But watch what happened after the betrayal and after the denial. Judas said, I have placed innocent blood on my hand. Judas went to the went back to the Roman government and tried to get the money back, right? But then Judas, he did repent, but he went to the high priest, and the high priest said, that's your own problem. You need to deal with that, right? Be careful when you tell people, when people come confide in you, right? Or about stuff and ask for help. But watch this. It was so heavy on him that Judas, even walking with Jesus, didn't realize who Jesus was. Because all he had to do is go back to Jesus. All right? When we look at Peter, what did Peter do? When Peter denied Jesus, he wept, right? Yeah, Judas confessed too because he was grieved. He wept, but what did Peter go? Peter went back with the disciples, right? Judas went and hid himself, right? So the difference is, and one also, Jesus did pray for Peter, right? But what I'm getting at in that is, no matter what you do, because what Judas did wasn't bigger or smaller than what Peter did. You know, sin is sin, right? There's no such thing as big sin, little sin. Sin is sin. The only thing that I can remember, y'all help me out, that Jesus said, a liar will not tarry in my sight, right? Because if you're lying, that means you're lying to yourself too, right? But the thing is, what I want to get to in this, because it talks about from weakness to strength with Peter. And what I want us to understand, because a lot of us have some Judas in us. A lot of us have Peter in us. And Lord forbid, some of us got both of them. in us, right? But whatever it is, don't allow the sin to have the last word, right? Because there's always time to go back to the Lord and ask the Lord to have mercy on you. And the Lord will restore you. And I think that's what this kind of text, this message, this lesson is all about. It is about humbling yourself to the point where the Lord can restore you and continue to use you. Because he was always using Peter, but Peter still wasn't humble, right? He still had that boldness in him, and the Lord wanted that boldness. But Peter, I want you to have that boldness, but I need you to have that humility. And the problem is with some people, we got a lot of boldness and no humility. Don't be so bold that we don't have the humility to allow the Lord to use us. That's back here.
All right. Pastor, I'll teach you a hand. Great lesson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. Teaching today and very good.
Yeah.
Reviewing. Okay. Let us have our secretary's report. Not in his mail.
They want to shake right in the road.
Okay. July the 12th, 2026. Church school was open at 9:35 with the same, just as I am, Apostles' Creed prayer, reading of the lesson text, Decalogue lesson text. We had, my lesson. Right. Simon Peter, from weakness to strength. And that came from Mark 8, chapter 27 to the 29th verse, verses Luke 20, chapter 22, 31 through 34, John 18, chapter 25 through 27, and 21st chapter, and 15 through 17. Our key verse came from John 21:17. Classes combined today, total present 11. And the overall review came from the pastor. The lesson was taught by Brother Fennell. Clarence Minette, superintendent, Reverend Christopher Jordan, pastor. Total contribution today was $75. Are there any corrections or additions?
Oh, no.
Secretary reports and approved costume announcements.
We just asked the church to keep all those that are struggling to see YLC in prayer. As me and Sister Linda will be leaving church today, heading down to Orlando. No Bible study on Wednesday. And also, if you want, we've been talking about the motivational gifts and knowing your gifts. I have the scoring sheets back in the back. You see Sister Linda. If you want to get your sheet to walk through to see where you stand at on your motivational gifts. That's all.
All right. Anyone else? That's it. Okay, let us stand for our church school creed and I believe my
Every church school must grow and grow, and I must make it a top priority to make it so. Remember, Christian, every Christian worker, every worker trained, so the worker need not be ashamed. This is asked in Jesus' name.
church school benediction.
We have come, we have studied, we have learned. So till our next come together, study God's word. May His rich blessings reside with you, and may His grace be yours. Amen. Amen. Good morning to our youth. Good morning, morning, morning.